أحسن كذا.
كيف بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. We continue with Min Hidayat Surah Al-Fatihah, the benefits and guidance found in Surah Al-Fatihah by Shaykh Abdul Razak ibn Abdul Muhsin al-Badr. And this is the next, not the last chapter, the chapter before the end of the book. 2 chapters left. This chapter and the chapter following. This chapter, Bayan Makanat al-Du'a, clarifying the importance and the station, the status of making dua in Islam. So he starts off, and remember all of this is contained in Surah Al-Fatihah. The importance of dua is found in Surah Al-Fatihah. So he says, أن فيها بيانا لمكانة الدعاء وأهميته وشدة حاجة المسلم إليه في كل وقت وحين كما أن فيها بيانا شافيا لآداب الدعاء وشروطه. In Al-Fatihah is found the importance of making dua and the severe need of the Muslim in making dua and praying to Allah Jalla wa Ala. And in Al-Fatihah is also found the adab, the etiquettes of making dua. What should a person say? What shouldn't a person say? How should a person's heart, what type of condition a person's heart should be? And the conditions of dua are also found in Al-Fatihah. So it's 2 sections. The first section discussing the importance of dua and the need that everybody has, that none of us are free from the need of making dua, the need of asking Allah Jalla wa Ala. We are all in need of Allah's help and Allah's aid. So firstly, he says, أما مكانة الدعاء من خلال سورة الفاتحة. As far as dua is concerned in Surah Al-Fatihah, he says, كتاب الله عز وجل افتتح بالدعاء كما أنه اختتم به. The Quran opens up with dua. The Quran opens up with dua, right? The first surah is what?
Al-Fatihah.
Al-Fatihah. Like, what's the dua in Al-Fatihah? Ihdina sirat mustaqim. That is dua. The ayah in itself is dua. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. So the Quran opens up with dua. The first chapter of the Quran, in it is dua, what we're asking Allah. Then he says, and the Quran ends with dua. The last surah is what?
The last surah?
The last surah is what?
Nas.
Surah An-Nas. Aywa. Tayyib. What's the dua in Surah An-Nas?
Protected from the waspas.
Aywa. The whole surah is dua. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Say, oh my Lord, right? The whole surah is dua, showing the importance of dua, that the Quran begins with dua and it ends with dua, to show how important and severe and serious dua is. Tayyib. He said that's firstly. He said, and this is from one of the clear things that show how important dua is. The fact that the Quran opens up with dua in Surah Al-Fatihah and the Quran ends with dua in Surah An-Nas. This is one thing. He said, on top of that, إضافة إلى الآيات الكثيرة التي جاءت في كتاب الله. On top of that, not that the Quran just starts with dua and ends with dua, but on top of that, the ayat throughout the Quran, the verses throughout the Quran showing the importance of making dua. He says, thirdly, والأحاديث كثيرة التي جاءت في سنة نبيه صلى الله عليه وسلم مبينة لفضله. And after that, the many hadiths, the many statements of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that clarify the virtue and the benefit of making dua. So these are the 3 things that he mentions show the importance of a person making dua. Now the second part is going to discuss the etiquettes of making dua. What should I do before I make dua? What should I do while I'm making dua? What should I say? What shouldn't I say? طيب. So firstly, those things or those ayat. طيب. قال تعالى وقال ربكم ادعوني استجب لكم. Where Allah says in Surah Ghafir, Allah says and He said, and your Lord said, call on me. Your Lord said, call on me, I will answer you. Call on me, and I will answer you. These are ayat from the Quran showing the importance of dua. Then Allah said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ إِبَادَتِي سَيَدْخُلُونَ جَهَنَّمَ دَاخِرِينَ. Then Allah said, those who turn away from my worship. And as the ulama tafsir say, meaning that they leave off making dua. Those who leave off making the dua to Allah Jalla wa Ala. Showing the importance. In another ayah in Surah Ibrahim, ayah 39, Allah says, Inna Rabbi lasami'ud du'a. That indeed my Lord hears the dua. That Allah hears the dua. And these ayahs show that we should never feel like we are hopeless. Because Allah is as-sami', the all-hearing. That He hears the dua. And Allah said in another ayah, call on me, I will answer you. So we have that promise from Allah Jalla wa Ala. Allah says in another ayah, and He mentions numerous ayat. He says, قال تعالى in Surah Al-Baqarah, وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعا. And if they ask you about me, فإني قريب, and tell them I am close, I answer the dua of the person making dua when they make dua, that I answer the dua. So we have the promise from Allah Jalla wa Ala that He answers the dua for the one who calls on Him. Now, of course, He didn't get to the conditions of dua and what needs to be present in order for the dua to be accepted. That's going to come later. طيب. Now He mentions the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, showing that all show the importance of making dua. There is no time that we should ever stop. And there's a hadith related to that. This hadith, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم فيما روى عن الله تبارك وتعالى. The hadith قدسي يا عبادي لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم قاموا في صعيد واحد فسألوني فأعطيت كل إنسان مسألته ما نقص ذلك مما عندي إلا كما ينقص المخيط إذا أدخل البحر. Where Allah said, O my slaves, if the first of you and the last of you, the jinn from amongst you, the people from amongst you, if you all stood on one plane, if everybody stood on one plane and asked Allah for something, as Allah said, فَسَأَلُونِي, and they all asked me for whatever they wanted, and I gave everyone everything that they wanted, Allah said, مَا نَقَصَ ذَلِكَ مِمَّا عِنْدِي. That would not take anything away from what Allah has. Allahu Akbar. That Allah does not need us. Allah has no need of us. That would not take anything from what Allah has, as Allah said, إِلَّا كَمَا يَنْقُصْ الْمِخْيَطِ إِذَا أُدْخِلَ الْبَحْرِ. The same way, if you took a needle and dipped it in the ocean, how much water would that take from the ocean? Allah said if He gave everybody everything that they wanted, that it wouldn't take anything away from what Allah has. Just same as if you were to dip a needle in the ocean, and it wouldn't take anything from the ocean. The Messenger ﷺ, he said in another hadith, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, ليس شيء أكرم على الله تعالى من الدعاء. There's nothing more noble and honorable to Allah than a person making dua. Allah Akbar. Another hadith. All these hadiths show the importance of making dua. The importance of making dua. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم من لم يسأل الله يغضب عليه. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever does not ask of Allah, then Allah becomes angry with him for not asking. For not asking. So Allah Jalla wa Ala yaghdab min abdihi idha taraka su'alahu. So Allah becomes angry if a person does not ask him for something. If a person stops making dua, that it angers Allah, that a person stops asking. Why is that? Does anybody know? Why? Yeah.
Allah is all-sufficient master whom all creatures need. We need him. Allah is self-sufficient.
Right. So if a person stops...
He has no needs, no wants. He's worthy of all praise, all worship.
G. So if a person stops asking...
You don't have to ask when Allah suffices.
G. So either way, a person, you're going down the right road. That's the right road. He says, لِأَنَّهُ يُشْعِرْ بِاسْتِغْنَائِهِ عَنْ رَبِّهِ تَعَالَى. If a person stops asking, it is as if they are not in need of Allah. So they don't ask. If a person stops asking, stops making dua, as if they are not in need of asking. Alaykum salam rahmatullah. As if they are not in need of asking Allah Jalla wa Ala. And that's why the Messenger ﷺ said, "Man lam yas'alillah yaghdab alayhi." That whoever doesn't ask Allah, then Allah is angry with that person. But stop for the person who stops asking, as if they stop asking, as if they are not in need. We know we need Allah. We need Allah. We know Allah doesn't need us. So a person stops asking Allah as if what? As if they're not in need of asking. طيب. The Messenger ﷺ, he said in another hadith, and this is a mushkila, this is a problem that some people face that Allah tests them with. Allah may test somebody with this type of statement. And it's not hypothetical, that's why the Prophet ﷺ mentioned it. This hadith is in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. قال عليه الصلاة والسلام يستجاب لأحدكم ما لم يعجل. He said that your prayers will be answered. The prayers of one of you will be answered as long as they're not in a rush. As long as you're not in a rush. As long as you're not hasty, that your prayer will be answered. Your dua will be answered. But then he describes what it looks like to be hasty or in a rush. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He said, يُسْتَجَابُ لِأَحَدِكُمْ مَا لَمْ يَعْجَلْ. That the prayer of one of you will be answered, your prayer will be answered as long as you're not in a rush. How do you know if somebody's in a rush though? What does a person do sometimes if they're in a rush for their dua to be answered? Or what do they say? Maybe.
Sound like gibberish, like they play fast, like the untaken.
Let's say Methodist, somebody's making dua for whatever it could be.
They don't have patience for that dua to be answered.
Yeah, so if they're in a rush and they're not patient with the dua being answered, what is something that a person might do or say? For Methodist, a brother's trying to get a house, a car, job, whatever it is. They're trying to get married. So he says, listen, I'm trying to get married. You say what? Make dua. If they say what? I made dua. I already made dua. Huh? I made dua and what? Until now, huh? I still ain't married. Until now, I still don't have a car. Until now, I still ain't get the job. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, يُسْتَجَابُ لِأَحْدِكُمْ مَا لَمْ يَعْجَلْ. Your prayer will be answered as long as you're not hasty. Then he explained what being hasty is. يَقُولُ دَعَوْتْ فَلَمْ يُسْتَجَبْ لِي. Being hasty, he says, a person says, I made dua and it wasn't answered. I made dua and it wasn't answered. Being hasty, that statement itself And the other hadith that explain it even more with the same type of statement, that a person says, I made dua and it wasn't answered. That this shows that a person is not being patient with the dua that they made. So the Messenger ﷺ said that the dua will be answered as long as the person is not hasty or in a rush. طيب. So he says here, وهو جل وعلا يحب من عبده أن يلح عليه وأن يكثر من التضرع بين يديه بخلاف الناس الذين يتأذون ممن يلح عليه. That Allah loves that a person constantly asks over and over and over and over for something. Allah loves that a person comes and they're humble and they ask Allah and they turn to Allah and they ask again and they ask again and they ask again and they ask again for the same thing. Allah didn't give, I'm gonna keep asking for it. Right? He says, which is the opposite. Allah loves that, which is the opposite of people. The opposite of the human being is that, honestly, if somebody keeps asking you for something, after a while, what?
You burnt out. Like
Yeah, burnt out. There you go. Burnt out. Like that, he keep asking the same, like, right? Allah is not like that. He's not like his creation. We're not like Allah. Allah doesn't get tired of his slave asking him. But as the other hadith says, the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever doesn't ask Allah, that Allah is angry with him. So he says that Allah loves that his slave, a person keeps asking over and over and over, right? Depending on Allah and asking Allah, which is the opposite of mankind, that we hate for people to keep asking us for something, right? He said, وَلِهَذَا قَالَ مَنْ قَالَ, and he mentioned a line of poetry here, which the poetry basically gives the same meaning of the hadith, that Allah loves to be asked, and he hates when you stop asking, and that people hate to be asked. وَاللَّهُ يَغْضَبْ إِن تَرَكْتَ سُؤَالَهُ وَبُنِيَّ آدَمَ حِينَ يُسْأَلُ يَغْضَبُ. That Allah hates when you stop asking him, and that mankind, people hate when you ask them. People hate when you ask them. Now he goes into some of the descriptions of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as pertaining to a dua. So he says, whoever reads the Sunnah, the seerah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he is the qudwa, وهو قدوة الناس وأسوتهم, sorry. He is the example for mankind, and they will see يتعرف على مكانة الدعاء. Whoever reads the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will learn the importance of making dua. فقد كان عليه الصلاة والسلام أعظم الناس دعاء وأحسنهم رجاء وأكملهم عبودية. That the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the best of the people when it came to making dua, the most complete of the people, the best of the people having hope in Allah, and the best of them when it came to worship, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَأَعْظَمُهُمْ تَلَذُّذًا. He was the greatest among them when it came to having humility. طيب. فَكَانَ يَدْعُ اللَّهِ وَيَذْكُرُهُ فِي كُلِّ وَقْتٍ. That he would make dua all the time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what he taught us. And this is exactly what we find in that book that most of us have. The book full of du'as that most of us have. Yeah, Fortress of the Muslim. Fortress of the Muslim. That is all du'as for everything, throughout the day and the night. Tayyib, he says that the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he had adhkar wa ad'iyya muwaddafa fil yawm wa layla. That he left us with du'as to say during the day and the night, right? Throughout the day and throughout the night. في الصباح في المساء. Some specific for the daytime when you wake up is dua, specific to say when you wake up, right? And there's dua specific to say before you go to sleep. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he left all of this for us. He says, وَعِنْدَ النَّوْمِ for sleeping, وَأَدْبَارَ الصَّلَوَاتِ. There are du'as that he left us to say after the obligatory prayers. وَفِي الصَّلَوَاتِ. There are du'as that he taught us to say in the salah. وَعِنْدَ الْخُرُوجِ مِنَ الْمَنْزِلِ. And dua that he taught us to say when we leave the house. Right? وَعِنْدَ دُخُولِهِ. And dua to say when we enter the house. If we don't know him, then that's on us. That's our problem if we don't know him. And he left us, وَعِنْدَ تَنَاوُلِ الطَّعَامِ. And he taught us dua to say when we eat. Right? وَعِنْدَ الْفَرَاغ مِنْهُ. And the dua to say when we finish eating. طيب. وَعِنْدَ الرُّكُوبِ الدَّابَّةِ. And the dua to say when he would get on his riding beast before we ride, before we pull off. وَكَانَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ يَدْعُو اللَّهَ بِجَوَامِ الْعَدِيَةِ وَأَكْمَلِهَا. And he used to make dua with the most comprehensive wording. That might have been real short wording, but it had a lot of meaning in it. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to like to make dua with those type of wordings. Very short, brief, even though some are longer than others, but they contained a lot of meaning. A lot of meaning contained in the wording. Now he discusses the importance of using the dua that the Prophet ﷺ left. Does anybody know what's the importance of using the dua that he taught us, ﷺ? Besides that the reward of following the sunnah. What else is the benefit of sticking to the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us?
Chance of it being accepted.
طيب جيد.
No need to switch it up.
What else? طيب. The benefit of sticking to the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Not that you can't say a dua that's not in Fortress of the Muslim. Not that you can't make up your own dua, right? You might want to ask for something specific, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But what's the benefit of sticking to the wording that the Prophet ﷺ taught us in the hadith? So if you don't use that wording, it's not going to get answered? Not necessarily. It don't necessitate that if you don't use the wording in the hadith, that the dua won't be accepted.
The benefit of Tawheed is in the negation of shirk.
Inside of the dua?
Inside of the dua.
طيب. A person may make their own wording for a hadith that's filled with Tawheed. It's just not what's mentioned in the narration. You with me? Why? What's the benefit of reading the dua or making the dua that's in Sahih al-Bukhari? The book, the dua that's in Sahih Muslim. What's the benefit of that? طيب, I'm making another dua, so I'm in the remembrance of Allah.
Because you follow what the Prophet actually said and did.
طيب. Yeah, other than following the sunnah of the Prophet. Of course, that's always a benefit, following the sunnah of the Messenger. But what's another benefit of sticking to that hadith? I'm going to give you the answer, of course.
What's the hadith?
Any hadith that mentions anything, any dua that he mentions, that he mentioned that the dua is this, the dua for waking up. Dua going to the bathroom, coming out the bathroom, going in the house, coming out the house. What's the benefit of using the hadith that he taught us? Of course, following the sunnah. Of course. We know that one. What else, sir?
From the increasement of the remember Allah.
Huh?
Right?
Proper way to do it. You have it.
Yeah. Meaning, if I made another dua other than what's in Sahih al-Bukhari, If I made the dua other than the famous dua of leaving out the house. Say if I left out the house and I just made my own dua. Oh Lord, protect me from these crazy people in the corner.
Because these ud'iyah are
These are authentic.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave these specific ud'iyah for us to call them with.
You get the question? You with me? Instead of saying when I leave out the house, the dua for leaving out the house, instead of saying the dua for after I'm finished eating, that's in the hadith, I just make a dua for myself. Alhamdulillah, that food was good, man. I thank Allah for that food. That food, and I make a dua, right? Which you can do, you can make dua, right? But what's the benefit of sticking to the text?
The best way to do it.
Why?
Because if I reward my son, like, we follow that, it's the best way to do it. That's why. Because he did it, we do it. It's the best way to do it.
Tayyib. What else?
There ain't no other way of doing it.
There's another way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's another way of doing it. Huh?
Fuck.
It's another way of doing it.
I'm waiting for you.
Tayyib. That's what he's going to talk about now. Tayyib. He says, أدياته صلى الله عليه وسلم التي كان يدعو بها ربه أدعية تامة ومعصومة لا خطأ فيها ولا زلل. That those dua that we find in the hadith, those narrations, the wordings of the prayers of those duas, there's no nucks, there's no deficiency, there's no mistakes in those wordings. Where a person might make dua and say something that's not appropriate to be saying in dua. You with me? A person could make a dua from themselves because they really need something right now. So they're focusing their dua on their need at the specific time. So maybe they don't know the dua for that situation from Fortress of the Muslim, Husband Muslim. So what do? They make their own dua from themselves, right? But in that, they might say something that's right, not appropriate, that you're not supposed to be making dua with that type of wording. You with me? That's from the benefits of sticking to the text when making dua, other than the stuff that y'all mentioned. Tayyib. He says there are no mistakes in the dua that he taught us. لأنه كما قال ربه تعالى وما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى. Because as Allah told us in the Quran that he doesn't speak from his own desires, but it's revelation. It's revelation. So the dua that he taught us in those hadith, they're the best. They're the best. If a person doesn't know them, then they can make another dua other than that.
So how would you, so we had answered the question then, when you asked it?
What y'all said wasn't wrong.
Okay.
But this was just another benefit on top of what y'all said. All that was all that was right. On top of that, the wording that he gave us is free from mistakes.
Okay.
Where we might make a dua, or we might say something that we shouldn't be saying in a dua. We might say something that's not appropriate to be making dua.
Another issue.
What
What's
you mean?
appropriate and what's not appropriate the same.
That's going to come in the adab,
Okay.
the etiquettes of dua and the conditions of dua, right? A person might make dua for something haram. You're not going to find a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ teaching us to make dua for something that is haram. You with me? But a person may make dua, and he might make dua for something that is haram, something that's disliked, something that's really not yanbaghi. The wording that they use, maybe what they're not asking for is haram, but maybe the wording that they use is not appropriate to ask Allah like that. Where the hadith protects us from all of that, as the Prophet ﷺ taught us. That's just another benefit on top of what y'all mentioned. He says, just that. Anything other than that, other than what's in the narration, is possible. He says, فَهِيَ لَيْسَتْ مَأْمُونَةً وَلَا مَضْمُونَةً وَلَا مَضْمُونَ السَّلَامَةِ. Anything other than the dua of the Prophet ﷺ that he taught us. It's not that it's wrong, but it's possible. It's not free from being, it's not error-free. A person could make a mistake in something they say. A person can use a word that they shouldn't be using. A person can make a mistake in the dua. Anything other than how the Prophet ﷺ taught us. So a person could make a dua that includes shirk. Right? It could be a dua that includes a person putting partners with Allah. Or they could make a dua that includes bid'ah. Right? You're not going to find or have those problems as long as you're using the adiyah, the du'as that the Prophet ﷺ taught us. You don't have to worry about that problem. You with me? طيب. He says, طيب. طيب. So the dua that a person makes from themselves, meaning is not the wording of the hadith. Not that it's wrong. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying that you can't do that. He's saying that the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us, those du'as that he taught us are safer as far as what a person is saying, what a person is asking for. That's why in the book Fortress of the Muslim, they're in chapters. If there's a chapter of anxiety, a chapter of new clothing, when somebody gets married, every situation he taught us a dua. Right? If you see something you like, if you're being tested with something, for every situation, right, he taught us a dua. Now, maybe a person doesn't know. They haven't memorized those du'as. They don't know them. So what do? They make a dua that they feel comfortable making. That doesn't mean they're wrong to do that. But what it does mean is any person is open to make a mistake. Human beings make mistakes. So any person could possibly make a mistake in what they're asking for, the usloob or anything like that. You have a question? Oh, I thought you had a question. طيب. He says, the dua of the Prophet ﷺ closes that door. It closes the door of a person saying something incorrect inside of the dua. It removes that problem in totality. So a person doesn't have to worry about any shirk being included in their dua when they're following the dua of the Messenger ﷺ, or any bid'ah in the wording because they're following the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, وَلِهَذَا عَدَّ أَهْلُ الْعِلْمِ من الضلال المبين والانحراف الواضح أن يكتب بعض الناس أدعية ينشئونها وينشوها لهم بعض الأشياخ. He said, this is why some of the ulama, some of the people of knowledge have considered the fact that some people, they take and they write these du'as on paper, other than what we find in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, right? And they take these du'as that their scholars have made for them. Their scholars make a du'a, and they take the du'a of the scholar, right? They spread them amongst the people. He said, and when they do this, they read them, the dua is that the scholar wrote. They read them, as he says, في الصباح والمساء وأدبار الصلوات وعند النوم. They read them in all of the places that the Prophet ﷺ taught us. There's a dua for what? Going to sleep. They don't read the hadith, the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us. They leave the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ taught us, and they use the hadith of who? The Shaykh. They leave the hadith, the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us after the salat, and they read the dua of that the Shaykh wrote. They leave the dua, as he says, that the Prophet ﷺ taught us in the daytime, sabah, and they use the dua of the Shaykh. They say that this is from, he says, some of the ulama, people of knowledge have considered this clear misguidance. Clear misguidance. That they use the dua of the Shaykh, as he says here, مَعَ هَجَرْ لِأَدْعِيَةِ الْمَعْصُومِ. And when doing that, they leave and abandon the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. So he taught us a dua for going in the house or coming out of the house. So what are they saying? Some of Ahlul and the people of knowledge, they say for a person to leave the authentic dua of the Prophet ﷺ for coming out of the house, and to take this dua that their Shaykh wrote on a piece of paper. So instead of using the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, which is free from mistakes, it's free from any mistakes, they're going to use the dua, they replace it with the dua of their Shaykh. which is not free from mistakes. And he says some of Ahl al-Ilm consider this a clear sign of misguidance. Dhalal mubin, clear misguidance, wal-inhiraf al-wadih. And this is a clear going astray in this issue, that a person replaces the dua of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the dua of one of mankind. As he says, one of their shuyukh. And then when they do this, when they do what? Or the dua in the salat, the dua after the salat, right? Right? All of these hadith, instead of reading what the Prophet ﷺ taught us in the hadith, they said, well, the Shaykh said this, I'm going to say this dua the Shaykh made. And replace the dua of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, فَأَيْنَ هَؤُلَاءِ مِنَ الْإِعْتِبَاءِ وَالْإِقْتِدَاءِ. Where do these type of people come in? Where is the love for following the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam? If you would leave off a dua that's protected from any flaws and use a dua that could possibly have some flaws in it, even if a Shaykh made it. Because that's what he says, Ashyahi, that their shuyukh, scholar wrote the dua down. But is a scholar free from making a mistake? No, he could make a mistake. But is the dua of the Prophet ﷺ free from mistakes? The dua of the Prophet ﷺ is free from mistakes. So a person leaves off was free from a mistake and use something that is possibly flawed or possibly has an error. He says, so where are these people regarding following the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam? وَتَعْظِيمْ مَا جَاءَ بِهِ الرَّسُولُ alayhi salatu wasalam. And where are they from having or giving honor and respect to the hadith and the narrations that the Prophet ﷺ taught us? Where's the respect for the sunnah if a person will replace an authentic dua from the Messenger ﷺ, they will replace it with a dua that is possibly flawed and incorrect? Where is their love for the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? He says, therefore Allah says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبُكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. He said, this is what Allah says in Surah Al Imran, ayah number 31. Tell them, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, say to the people, if you really love me, if you really love Allah, tell the people, Muhammad, if you really love Allah, then follow me. Meaning follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you really love Allah, then follow me. If you do that, Allah says, He says, فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبُكُمُ اللَّهُ. If you do that, if you follow the Messenger, Allah will love you, number one, وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. And He will forgive you for your sins. And Allah is all forgiving, the most merciful. So, the issue is sticking to what is, let's say, sure, or what we're clear about, instead of going with a question mark. Sticking with what you're sure about, which is the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, right? And not going with a question mark, which would be the dua that a person may make. Which it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It doesn't mean that all du'as are wrong that a person makes. It's not the issue. The issue is we know for sure that the dua of the Messenger ﷺ that we find in the hadith, we know that those du'as don't have any flaws or mistakes in them. That's what we do know. And what we also know is a person, any person other than the Messenger ﷺ could say something and have a slip of the tongue, make a mistake. That's what we do know. So the thing is, don't replace what we're sure about for something that we're not sure about. Tayyib? That's the issue. Tayyib. He mentions here the adab al-du'a, shurut wa adab al-du'a. طيب. He said, وقد اشتملت سورة الفاتحة على جملة كبيرة من شروط الدعاء وآدابه. That Al-Fatihah included conditions for dua and the etiquette of making dua. Conditions and etiquettes. Shurut, conditions, wa adab, and etiquettes of making dua. That if a person fulfills these conditions and these etiquettes, that is hope that their du'as will be answered. The first condition is what? Al-Ikhlas. Sincerity. That a person is sincere. Now remember, these conditions, these conditions,
I would say he has to be Muslim first, right?
no doubt. Muslim for what?
Shahada. To make for dua to be accepted, right?
Do they have to be Muslim for the dua to be accepted? So, if a non-Muslim makes dua, none of their duas are accepted?
No. Right.
Huh? I'm asking you.
I'm saying, Allah, Lord. I mean, Allah still provides for them even though that they associate partners with them.
Sorry. Hold on to that, hold on to that. Tayyib. He's pulling these from Al-Fatihah. These are not just random. All right, he's pulling them from Al-Fatihah. Tayyib. Al-Ikhlas. All right, these conditions are coming from Al-Fatihah. And I think he mentions like 9 of them, or conditions of adab, or 10 maybe. Al-Ikhlas, lillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. Wa huwa aham shart. This is the most important condition. وقد جاء ذكره مقدما بين يدي الدعاء في سورة الفاتحة. طيب, what's the dua in Surah Al-Fatihah? Because the dalil for ikhlas comes before the dua. In Al-Fatihah, there's a dua. Before the dua comes the proof for that a person has to be sincere. What's the dua in Al-Fatihah, number 1? Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. Tayyib, what comes before that dua?
Sincerity.
Huh? No, sincerity is the first condition, but what comes? What in Al-Fatihah? Where do we get sincerity from? Ikhlas from Al-Fatihah. Huh? Huh?
Where do we get sincerity from? Or you alone verse, you alone help everything.
Son? Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Iyaka na'budu. You alone we worship, and you alone we seek your help. So ikhlas comes before the actual dua in Al-Fatihah, right? Before the ayat previous to the dua is Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Like before that dua, we do something before that. Ikhlas. Iyaka na'budu. Iyaka na'budu. Allah Akbar. Everybody should try to read the tafsir of Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in.
Send a note, right? Send a footnote.
Tafsir, yeah, read the tafsir. Because it's even more in Arabic. The way the sentence structure in Arabic is what they say, yufidul hasr. It's a restriction. The way it's worded is restricted to all worship is restricted for Allah Jalla wa'ala. The way it's worded in Arabic.
Then you take it back, you gotta learn Arabic.
Gotta learn Arabic. Allah yasir. Don't be deceived by the shaitan. That learning Arabic is so difficult, but it's not that difficult. This is just about as hard as anything else that you want to do that you got to work for if you really want it. It's about as hard as that. If you really want to do something, Allah makes it easy, and Allah make it easy. If we really want to do something, if we really, really want to do something, we take time out, we go to bed late, we get up early, we stay up late, get up early, stay up late, 6 months at a time, a year and a half, until we do what? Get what we want. It's not that difficult. The kids did it in 2 months. Adults did it in 2 months, 8 weeks. Tayyib. So he says, this is the first one, al-ikhlas. And this is the most important condition. And there are many ayat in the Quran that prove that a person has to be sincere when they make dua to Allah. قال تعالى ومن أضل ممن يدعو من دون الله من لا يستجيب له إلى يوم القيامة وهم عن دعائهم غافلون. Who is more misguided than the one who calls on other than Allah? He calls on those who cannot answer him. They never answer him. Who's more misguided than this person? This is Surah Al-Ahqaf, ayah number 5. And there are many ayahs throughout the Quran that prove that a person has to be mukhlis, that a person has to be sincere. But honestly, I want to stop there because I didn't want to go into the conditions altogether. I want to do these separate. The conditions and etiquette I want to do all together in one class. The dua for what? Law. They want to accept Islam, they're Muslim, they're sincere. Allah tells us in the Quran that those non-Muslims, when they're in the jam, they do what? They call on Allah. When Allah save them, the God of Kufar answered. Mumkin. That's a whole nother issue. Good deeds being accepted is a whole nother issue. But it's possible that Allah could give and respond. Even a hadith about, the ulama described the hadith of oppression. That the dua of the oppressed is accepted. Even in the short explanation of hadith, the ulama say even a non-Muslim, in the short of that hadith. The dua. Any other questions? We're going to do the shurut and the adab together. Inshallah, we'll do them next week. The conditions and the etiquettes for making dua. All taken from, all of these are found in Al-Fatihah. They're not random. They're not random, just pulled from everywhere. Found in Al-Fatihah, conditions for dua and etiquettes of dua, and it's 10. All found in Surah Al-Fatihah.
That's where you bring it from?
That's what's not. I mean, Surah Al-Fatihah. Everything is from Al-Fatihah. That's why I said, وقد اشتملت سورة الفاتحة على جملة كبيرة من شروط الدعاء وآدابه. Surah Al-Fatihah has a lot of conditions and etiquettes of making dua in Surah Al-Fatihah. The first one, Al-Ikhlas. Where we find Al-Ikhlas? إياك نعبد. Ikhlas. The person got to be sincere. And then the next ayat is the dua. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Allah Akbar. That's it. Allah. We stop there. We'll start with Ikhlas again next week, and then we'll go from there, inshallah. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.